We'll inform, spark your interest, and of course there will be a Q&A at the end of the session. I'm Fiona Keogh, CEO of AusContact and your moderator for today. There are still a few people to join us, so let's use the time wisely. While we're waiting, let's quickly run through some housekeeping. Remember to interact with us today to maximise the benefit, and there's no need to take too many notes because we'll be providing you with the slides and recording of the webinar. To interact with us, please use the questions pane on the control panel. You can ask questions, make comments for Graham, Odette or myself from time to time. And remember, we will be having a full Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Type your questions as you go along so that you don't forget to ask them. I know that most of you are familiar with asking questions, but let's try out the questions pane on the control panel now anyway. And the question for today is a trick question. Which organisation is sponsoring today's webinar? So let's get those hands on the keyboard and start answering the question so that we know that we can interact with you throughout the session. Now, the hint is, Fiona, thank you for my namesake. It's Jakarta. Well done, you got the right answer. Anybody else going to type in the answer so that we just know that we've got the crew with us today? Give you a couple of seconds. Excellent. So we've got a few more responses, so that's brilliant. So I know that you can hear us and that you're answering the questions. If you're listening through headphones or speakers and have any technical issues with your internet connection, please note that on the control panel you can click to switch to the telephone, at which point a toll-free number for your country, an access code and a PIN number will appear on the screen for you to dial into the webinar. Alternatively, you can raise your virtual hand and one of the team from AusContact will rush to your aid. So with that, I'm pleased to welcome a familiar voice, Graham and Odette, and it's a very special welcome, and over to you, Graham.
Fiona, can you hear me? Hello?
We can now, Graham. Go for it.
Wonderful. Fiona, thank you so much for that warm introduction. It's glad to be here again. I can't believe it's already December. I think we've been with you guys for 2 or 3 webinars this year. Great turnout, great discussions. Hopefully today we can have another interactive audience. Today we're going to be focusing on powering up your digital channels, really looking at what the situation is in the utility industry in Australia and looking at the contact center pains. I really don't want to spend too much time talking about Jakarta today because it's really about you guys and the industry and what we've seen and learned, and showing you a quick demonstration of some of the technologies that we've been using to assist in alleviating some of those pains. And today we're going to use a bit of a case study and some discussion points. So please feel free to jump in at any point in time and ask questions. The more interactive, the better. So today it will be myself, Graham Gilbert. I'm the EMEA and APAC Business Development Manager, and my friend Odette Kaplan, who's currently based offshore, so he's made himself available, and he's the pre-sales manager for also the EMEA and APAC team. So just to give you a bit of a background as to who we are and where we've been able to gain our understanding and learning, which we're going to share to you today, is that Jakarta has actually been around for 25 years. Incidentally, later on this month, we're actually going to be celebrating our 26th birthday, which is quite a mean feat these days in a very fast-paced technological environment. We originally started by working in the area of green screen integration automation, moved from there into the development of unified agent desktops, and later on into agent scripting and guidance. With the advent of technologies, we then moved to that front end, dealing directly with the end customer with smartphones and the like. So, whilst you may not have heard of our millions of customers using our technologies, talking with people like yourselves in contact centers around the globe, we have a range of industries that we work with. Some of these names may be more familiar to you than others, such as AIG, Vodafone, We work with Optus in Australia. And so these are names that you will probably hear and recognize without even realizing that you've been dealing with our technologies. We are headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, with our R&D team based in Israel, and we have local representation in Melbourne and Brisbane. So what's something that might be of interest to you very quickly is that we're agnostic when it comes to telephony. So our products are not something that you need to come in and rip and replace, as we say, and we work with a lot of global and local distributors. So not to worry about being able to work with you in your situation. So that's a little bit about us, but more importantly, we're here to talk about the power and utility industry. And I thought that this was a very interesting quote to open up today's discussion. So what is the challenge that's actually facing utilities? Well, according to a recent report by EY, they said that customers are demanding more from P&U companies than ever before. They expect a wider range of services, transparent and competitive pricing, and the power to control their own transactions whilst engaging with their power provider in a way that suits them. Now, this isn't unique to the power and utility industry. In fact, this is just what customers are expecting globally. But it's more significant for an industry that has supposedly traditionally struggled with customer satisfaction levels. And so in order for them to, I guess, get up to scratch and up to speed, they have a lot more to do than maybe some of the others. So some of the recent and local stats that I found when we're talking to some of our customers is that 1 in 5 Australians said that their least engaging digital experience was actually with a utility company. In fact, it was only rated second behind government, and that says a lot in terms of how people feel about the power industry. In fact, most customers are saying that they have been digitally disengaged from their customers, or the companies are, and this is even further confirmed by another EY report that said that electricity retailers are not very good at customer experience. So what does this mean at the end of the day is that 25% of a company's clients are churning over, and so this is a really big problem when you consider that the market is highly competitive, the rates are relatively regulated, and so 25% means that you're actually losing money out the door. This was actually a very interesting quote by the AEMC in their annual report, who are actually quoting Origin Energy. And it says, price competition becomes more intense. Retailers need to invest to retain their customers. Improving customer service is one of the best ways to hold onto existing customers and promote a brand reputation that leads to new acquisitions. And this goes back to the statistics I showed on the slide before, which is that we can't afford in this industry to be having a 25% churn rate. Now, given the fact that I don't know about some of my audience members today, but for me, when I think about my power and utilities suppliers, I don't have an emotional attachment to them. I remember a brand, and if I've had a positive experience, great, but it's not something that I interact with on a regular day, despite the fact that I'm using their product. The only time I have a real reaction is either when I see a bill or when something goes wrong, such as there's a power outage or I have blown something up. I'm not sure if everyone's had that experience, but I have. So what is the cause of this bad experience? Well, historically, that's due to a lack of investment in customer experience. And this is where it's tended to really lag behind others. And so what they've opted for is traditionally minimal, low-touch service, which has prevented the companies from actually understanding the customers and developing a long-term relationship, which again comes back to this cycle of high levels of customer dissatisfaction and decreased loyalty. So I think at this point this could be a great time to do the first polling question to sort of find out, Fiona, what people actually think are the causes of their high volumes of inbound calls.
Absolutely, and it's particularly relevant. So Dimple, if you could launch the poll, we're going to have 3 polls in fairly quick succession. First question, which of the following is the reason for the largest volume of inbound calls? Is it outages, change of details, billing-related issues, or meter checking? So we're only going to allow a very short time to respond to this, and then we're going to show some results and then some of the research that's been done, and then we'll move on to the next polling question. So with more than 60% of our audience having responded, let's close the poll, share the result, which says that we have 89% about billing-related issues, 11% outages, and none on change of details or meter checking. So let's share what the research has shown.
Yeah, Fiona, with an industry like power and utilities, it's highly regulated. So there's a lot of research, and it shows that in 2014 to 2015, that actually 50% of all complaints came in relation to the power bill. I mean, I don't know about you, but most people tend to budget for a particular season as to how much they're going to spend. And when they get a bill that's significantly larger, you know, the first thing that happens is, what the hell is going on? And they don't necessarily try and do self-service. They're going to pick up the phone and want someone to explain it to them. In fact, in last year, South Australia had an increase of 17%, and they had 12% of their entire customer base complained. In New South Wales, it was only 11%, but when you consider the size of the state in terms of population, that's still a considerably large number, of which there was a 47% increase. So 50% was to do with the power bill. The other 50% was to do with outages, which you would expect would be the second biggest one, followed by change of details, meter issues or checking, and complaints about marketing.
Okay, so we're going to do the next poll. So this is in relation to your business, if you want to reflect on that. How would you rate your digital channel offering? It's very good, it's good, it's average, or it's below par. And it's always interesting to see what people think, because quite often we're quite self-deprecating. Okay, so we've got more than 60% have responded. Dimple, if you could close the poll, and then we're going to share the results. And as you can see, nobody thought they were very good. The vast majority of people, well, not the vast majority, said they're about average at 45%, 36% good, and 18% felt they were below par. So any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, Fiona, as if you go back to the polling just quickly to the results, in the last 2 years there's been a significant increase in investment on the self-service channels and also on customer-related interactions, and that's why you're seeing probably a higher rate now than you would have 2 years ago in people saying that there was average or good. 2-3 years ago, people would have said it would have been below par or average. So there is that investment, but there is a lag in terms of making the investment and it actually turning into intangible results for a customer.
Yep.
So if we move to the third question, which will tie this back into, what we're here to discuss today, which is about powering up your channels, not just one of them, but all of them, which is what I'd like people to answer today is, how would you rate the connectivity between the digital and your voice? So if your customers are starting on self-service and then they need to speak to an agent, is there any level of connectivity, or are people finding that their channels are still siloed and more offering a multiple options rather than an omnichannel?
Yeah, and that's very much about omnichannel, isn't it? So again, the four options are very good, good, average, or below par. So we have over 70%, nearly 80% have responded. So Dimple, if you could close the poll, that would be great, and let's share the results. And those results are as follows. Interesting, again, 45% saying below par, 36% average, 18% good. So slightly different to what was being offered. How do you think that sits in the market?
That doesn't surprise me at all, because as we've seen from the utilities compared to the general market, it tends to be a little bit of a lag. The industry is a little bit further behind. In some of the more generic industries, you'll find that it's probably a little bit higher on the good quality or the good level, but still connectivity between all the different channels is the real challenge today. It's great that people are providing more options for their customers because, as the research has always said, customers want to have access to information when and where they choose, which is the biggest problem today. So the more that you can not only provide those options, but in context, the greater the customer service, which means the greater the retention and the greater the chances of bringing on new customers. So that brings us to the next slide, which Oded will give a little bit more detail about and explain this concept a little bit further.
Great, thanks, Graham. So to understand where Visual IVR fits in the overall picture, it helps to take a look at customer experience today. And according to analysts, what we see is that about 60% of customers in general, of course the numbers may change between industry to industry, but on average we see that about 60% of customers will attempt some level of self-service, either on the mobile device, on the website, through the IVR, through social media, but unfortunately we see that only about 30% of customers will successfully self-serve. The remaining 70% will abandon and revert to the contact center. And when they do revert to the contact center, they find themselves having to re-explain or everything that they've done or what they're calling about to the contact center agent, which means a very fragmented and inconsistent experience. Surprisingly enough, we see that 40% of customers will call customer service directly. And when they do, they inevitably find themselves in a voice IVR, and let's face it, customers don't love the voice IVRs. And it's not great customer experience. But what it means, essentially, is that 82% of customers end up in the contact center. And when they do end up in the contact center, agents typically have no idea what it is that they're calling about. They have no record of what they did on the mobile or on the website, which leads to long handle times. If you look at the customer's expectation as opposed to the actual experience, you can see that customers expect 3 C's when interacting with the organization. They expect channel choice. Now, what does that mean? In a world with more and more customer engagement channels, the customer wants the option to choose how they will engage with the organization, through social media, through voice, through the application, through the website, and more importantly, customers also want consistent and contextual interactions. So not only do I want to choose the channel of choice, but it's very important for me as a customer to have uniform experience as I move between those various different channels. I can't have one message on the website and a different one in the contact center. And as I engage with the organization, I also want the information I receive to be contextual and personalized to me. And finally, customers expect cross-channel continuity. So not only do I want to choose the channel, and the information needs to be consistent, but I want to be able to move freely between the various different channels of choice. For example, I may start on the website, pick up the phone, move out the house, continue on my smartphone application, and then move back into the voice. And the context of what it is that I'm trying to do needs to follow me around and persist throughout my entire journey of engaging with the organization. So what I'd like to do today, and given that about 82% of customers are coming through voice, sorry, it's a bit of a lag. One moment, I skipped a screen, so bear with me for a moment. Given that 82% of your customers are coming through the voice IVR, what I'd like to demonstrate to you today is how using Jakarta Visual IVR will allow you to drive digital transformation in your voice channel and effectively turn your existing voice IVR into an advanced, modern visual experience geared towards digital channels and powering a greater customer experience. What I'd also like to discuss with you today is how Visual IVR effectively can become a customer interaction hub that ties together all of your digital self-service and assisted service assets. And Visual IVR will allow you to leverage your existing digital assets, such as mobile websites, virtual agents, knowledge bases, connecting them all together to your assisted channels and bridging that gap between digital and analog. It's important to state at this point that Visual IVR can easily be integrated with existing channels of engagement such as chat and various different voice infrastructure such as Avaya, Cisco, and Genesys. So in order to put some context around that, what I'd like to do now is give you a quick demonstration. And I'm going to play the part of a customer who has received a relatively high bill, and the customer would like to speak to the, call into the contact center and get some more information on why their bill is so high. So, if you could let me know when you can see my screen.
We certainly can.
Wonderful. So, on the right-hand side of my screen, you should be able to see my smartphone, and this is my actual phone, and I'll be using this to simulate the part of the customer. And on the left-hand side, you're going to see what the agent will see throughout the call. So, as I mentioned, the scenario is as follows: the customer has received a bill. The bill is relatively high. The customer wants to dial into the contact center to speak to an agent and maybe get some information on why their bill is so high. And by the way, this information is available on visualivr.com. You can try this out on your own immediately after the webinar. I urge you to have some fun with this. There's a lot of useful information on the website. So I'm going to begin by selecting my country and my scenario. I'm currently, as Graham mentioned, based offshore in Israel. So I'm going to select the region, and I'm going to select in the industry demonstration. In this case, utility, but there's also a wealth of information for other industries on the website. So the customer is going to dial in to the contact center.
Thank you for calling DCN Power. If you are on your smartphone, please press 1 so that we may send you some important information and quickly get you the help you need. This is the fastest way to receive direct assistance from our team. If you prefer to wait for the next available agent, please press 2 or remain on the line. If you are on your smartphone, please press 1. Thank you. We are sending you an important text message. Please open this message and follow the link to quickly get the help you need through our new visual menu. The visual menu will help us collect information to connect you to the best agent. Please don't hang up and follow the link in the text you just received.
And invariably, whenever you run a live demo, something will go wrong. So if you'll permit me, I'll restart that demonstration. Oh, no, it hasn't gone wrong. I have received the demo. It's just a bit of a delay there for the link. Okay, so you can see that I've disconnected the call at this point. This is purely optional. The call can remain open, and Visual IVR can have a multimodal voice and visual experience. In this case, the call is disconnected, and you can see that Visual IVR works just as well. From a customer perspective, what the customer can see immediately after clicking on the link is a visual, menu-driven experience which will allow us to collect context about what the customer is calling about. But it will also allow us to drive certain self-service options towards the customer. Ideally, we want the content which is displayed on the smartphone to be tailored towards the customer, making it more relevant towards their needs, and increasing the probability of them being able to self-serve what it is their needs even more. So you can see that by clicking on the link, the application has been opened in browser in an HTML5 web application. Now, what that means is that no matter the level of smartphone application adoption, we're able to provide this visual experience to 100% of your customer base that have smartphones. So the first thing we want to do is qualify why the customer is calling. you can see the various different common power and utility use cases. The customer in this case is calling about a billing and payment inquiry. And you can immediately see that it's a much more convenient, intuitive experience than listening to a voice IVR. Press 1 to sign in using your secret PIN code. Press 2 to enter your ID number. As a visual medium, it's much easier for me to browse and peruse the information. But more importantly, because it's a visual medium, I can collect alphanumeric information and not just numeric information, something which is almost impossible to do using a standard voice IVR. So I'm just going to punch in the information here and continue down the flow. So the first thing I'm going to do is present some information to the customer about their current balance and bill status, which is something which you should always try to do in order to capture the vast majority of customers who are calling about a bill query. But what I can also begin to do here is add additional informative information. So if the customer is only calling for a bill explanation, we can take this opportunity to explain the bill to the customer. So we can provide a quick textual explanation and compare, for example, the customer's current bill to last year's bill by tying into a CRM system or various other systems of record to retrieve customer-specific information and provide something which is truly meaningful to the customer. Let's say this information hasn't satisfied the customer and they still want to speak to a contact center agent. By clicking on Contact Us, we can begin to collect context. But let's say the customer does want to speak to an agent and we are still on the call or off the call. We can utilize this information and the fact that the customer is on Visual IVR to present even more information to them. For example, including multimedia, to present additional information to the customer, for example, an explanation of the bill. We can begin to leverage some of the smartphone's more advanced capabilities, such as camera or geolocation, for example, to identify regionalized outages, or if the customer is calling about an equipment failure, we can have the customer take a picture of the failed equipment and send it to us. And finally, if we do want to transition the customer to the contact center, we mentioned the fragmented experience earlier on, we do want to make the transition as contextual as possible. So when I do speak to an agent, I have the agent has all the information about what it is that the customer has done. So when the customer does want to speak to an agent, we can offer the connectivity across a broad variety of different engagement channels. In this case, we've offered chat. We can offer the customer the opportunity to call back, or the option to call back. We can send an email, but in this case, let's say the customer wants to call directly to an agent. In this case, because the call is disconnected, we are going to invoke the device's native dialer and call into the contact center. If the call was connected, the call would be connected automatically to the contact center agent. At this point, I'd like to draw your attention to the right-hand side here and the agent view. So the agent will be able to see everything that I've done within Visual IVR. So instead of the first thing the customer hears being, "Hi, who are you? What are you calling about?" the agent can immediately say, "Hi, Mr. Kaplan, I can see you're calling about a bill query, and the reason that your bill was so high is that you had an unusual amount of usage between so-and-so dates." The agent can see all of the questions that were answered within Visual IVR, any information which I may have entered. And they can also drill down and get a more detailed view of exactly what it was that I did within Visual IVR. Any information I may have entered, any menu items which I may have clicked on, and any photographs I may have uploaded or geolocation information which was collected about the customer during the call. Finally, let's say that I have some important information as an agent to send to the customer. Because we're still engaged on a visual medium as well, as well as on a call, we can utilize that to begin to engage with the customer in a multimodal experience. So you can see now what I've done is I've opened a engagement window, which is a visual means of communication in addition to the voice call which I'm now on. I can chat with the customer. Oh, sorry, let me just show you how that works. And moreover, because this isn't just chat, the agent can send vital pieces of information and multimedia to the customer, such as videos, PDF files, additional self-service interactions. So if I need to send the customer a piece of a PDF or a form to sign, I can send it to them, and the customer can send it back to the agent in real time. But this engagement window will persist. So it's not just a single chat session. So if I've perhaps offered the customer a promotional package, the customer can go away, have a think about it, call back in a few hours' time, and the next agent picks up the call, will be able to see the chat room and pick up the persisting chat engagement or the engagement, reviewing all the documents that may have been exchanged, and continue the experience from where we left off. What that means is that we're getting that consistency across various different channels that we discussed earlier on. That's the end of the live demonstration. Let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation for now. Thank you. So, after the demonstration, what I'd like to do is discuss about how Visual IVR is a vehicle to rapidly drive call deflection. So take for comparison the various other call prevention initiatives, such as the website, the mobile application, and recall the earlier slide that showed that only some 30% managed to self-serve. What we typically see is a long adoption curve with only incremental improvement. Take, for example, the corporate application. The situation there is even more bleak, and companies invest a lot of resources in mobile apps, while statistics point to very lukewarm adoption at best. Consumers will generally only use a small number of applications, and they'll use those habitually. Think Facebook and Waze and Instagram. But even if customers are convinced to download a corporate application, chances are that they won't even remember that they have it installed. Customers just don't want that sort of engagement with the corporation, not to mention the fact that they need to remember usernames or PIN codes or passwords. But all that leads to a certain drop-off and very minimal reduced call volumes and transition to self-service and self-service containment rates. Because Visual IVR is so flexible, and we can integrate it with native applications, we can integrate it on the website, we can integrate it with any visual medium, and by targeting consumers at the point where they've already decided that they need assistance, either on the website or on the voice IVR, Visual IVR is able to deflect a large volume of customers towards self-service, and it's able to do so contextually, ensuring that the customers are able to access the information that they're trying to reach. This means a rapid improvement in both call deflection and a superior customer experience, and this complements the other existing efforts and is also very highly cost-effective. So what is the outcome of this? Essentially, it's a digital interaction that reduces the effort that it takes customers to engage a company, while creating a seamless experience across all the touch points. But providing on-demand digital engagements, you can enjoy increased revenues due to more personalized engagements. You can offer increased agility in time to market, because Visual IVR ships with an intuitive drag-and-drop design environment, which allows you to react to changing business requirements very rapidly in a no-coding environment. These customized and personalized interactions increase customer loyalty. And the fact that we're able to offer a solution that drives customers towards self-service results in significant cost savings by reducing the number of calls into the contact center. And if the calls are transferred to the contact center, we do so in context, resulting in shorter handle times. We discussed a couple of different use cases, and tying into to Graham's earlier question about what type of use cases are most prevalent in the power and utility industry. So another few possible use cases, just to give you some food for thought. The major one being billing explanations, and obviously this is the most common one and the most high value one. But some other use cases that are highly relevant. We see these with most of our customers. Take, for example, the outage reporting. So by proactively identifying who the customer is, or utilizing some of the more advanced smartphone capabilities, such as geolocation, or the ability to collect alphanumeric information to have the customer enter their address, we're able to easily identify who the customer is, where they are, and proactively provide them with the information about any localized outages that they may have in their region. We can also utilize the fact that it's a graphical medium to present a lot of different textual information, something would be very, very difficult to do using a voice IVR. We can provide detailed usage information, comparisons between various different time periods, and also information on how to minimize that usage. Because again it's a visual medium and it is PCI compliant, we can also process payments. So after we've identified an energy bill, we can actually allow the customer to pay that bill within Visual IVR. We can also utilize the flexibility of Visual IVR, and I'll going back again to the business agility and the fact that it's a drag and drop design environment, which is very easy to change. We can offer promotional information very, very simply within Visual IVR, simply by changing a couple of drag and drop elements and then changing them back when the promotion is over. Finally, we can take a look at equipment issues. We mentioned leveraging some of the more advanced smartphone capabilities, such as taking a picture. So we can allow the customers to enter queries or complaints about faulty equipment, but not only log a complaint, they can also take a picture of the faulty equipment and send it to the agents.
But Dad, if I may just add something to that, what we've found is that this has actually been a secondary benefit to businesses in relation to resource allocation. For instance, if I'm a customer and I'm on the street and I notice that there's something wrong with some of the equipment on the street, I don't know anything about it. And when I go and call, say, my energy supplier, and I'll say, oh, listen, one of the poles is down, and they're going to ask me, oh, exactly where are you and what's going on? Well, they're going to send out some staff and some equipment to try and fix this thing. Whereas with something like Visual IVR, they can have geolocation, take the photos, and an assessor can see very quickly probably what is wrong and what's required, therefore being able to provide better resources more cost effectively from an internal perspective for the business. And that's a secondary benefit that we've seen, especially overseas with local councils and utility providers there.
Yep, absolutely. On top of inbound use cases, we also see Visual IVR being used quite a lot for outbound use cases and proactive engagement with the customer. For example, outage notifications. To preempt the masses of customers calling, or we anticipate that would call, in an outage scenario, we can proactively send Visual IVR as an SMS message and allow the customers to interact with the organization proactively, cutting off, preempting the calls that will come in. We can proactively send money-saving tips, including multimedia information, forms, videos, and so on through Visual IVR. We can inform the customer of service adjustments or anticipated service changes. And finally, we can also send the customer payment reminders, again including the capacity to pay their bill within Visual IVR, hopefully concluding the entire payment cycle within self-service. And with that, I'd like to hand back off to Graham.
Lovely. Thanks, Oded. Today I've really been utilising a few of these great quotes. It's not often that you get some fantastic ones, but this is one I came across recently on a global report on the industry. It was written by PwC. And they said that the struggle that utilities are experiencing in matching their digital ambitions with actual investment is somewhat ironic for an industry whose pioneering inventions, or innovations rather, included the electrification of the world, starting with Thomas Edison's first power station in 1882. A little more than 130 years later, utilities must learn to innovate again, this time through digitalization rather than electrification. And this is the big challenge not only facing them, but all industries. So hopefully that we've answered some questions, given you some food for thought. We hope that you've enjoyed today's session, and we'll go and have a bit of a play with the demo. And with that, Fiona, do we have any questions that we can have an answer to?
We don't have any questions as yet. However, if I can add some comments and ask you some questions and give people time to start typing, certainly the benefits and using utilities as a great example, because it is part of all of our lives. I don't know of anybody that doesn't use electricity or water as a staple of life, unless you're off the grid or whatever. But even then, you're still connected in, whether you're on selling or that's been now stopped. I could see a couple of benefits, not only for the customer, but in terms of your staff. And we know that, with a higher staff engagement, that you are likely to get a better customer experience. Through what Jakarta provides, you're actually totally equipping your people to provide a better experience for your customers, which would therefore make their jobs likely to be more easy to deliver, which would therefore create better staff engagement. And obviously the customer experience will improve as a result of that. What I was wondering, either Graham or Oded, and I'll leave it up to you guys to answer, do you have any examples that you can share, even outside of power and utilities, where what Jakarta has done in an implementation has actually improved staff engagement or the customer experience, where there are tangible benefits that you can literally call out, in terms of any, staff engagement surveys or any customer engagement or satisfaction surveys?
The anecdotal evidence to date has been that it's been very, very successful. So when we've spoken to our customers and said, listen, how do your staff like it? What are they feeling? Because it is a new technology, and technology is changing fast, so it's always good to keep your finger on the pulse of your staff, who are the cold face of the customers. They've said that the most important part is that they love having the context. So if you can do ID and V early on, and it's done through Visual IVR, they don't have to ask a whole lot of questions, especially in an environment like utilities where the majority of calls are going to be negative, which means that customer service agent is already primed to be taking a negative call, and that takes its toll. So if you have some context, you can already start to reduce the negativity that's coming from the customer, and that makes your job a lot easier. Because I can tell you, I hate it when I'm getting that many calls that are just one after the other, nothing positive. Whereas if you can start to take that stress away from your customers, then they start to engage better with the agent. And that's the thing that they like the most, is that context, and then being able to arm themselves with already some answers or some ways to deflect that negativity. And whilst this industry is actually very good at answering calls quickly, they're not actually very good at supplying good customer service, because in the minds of the customers, they're calling about negative issues. So there isn't a lot yet in CSAT scores and things like that. It takes a lot longer to look at those, but the anecdotal evidence so far has been very, very positive by the clients and the customers.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I don't think any of us ring our power or utilities provider and say thank you very much for the bill. It's too small. Can you charge me more? That would be the typical conversation, would be the antithesis of that. So while you've been talking, we have had a question that's come in from Philip. And Philip would like to know, by using Visual IVR, has the talk time been reduced?
Yeah, absolutely. And this ties into the information which is available to the agent. Visual IVR does a very good job of identifying customer context because the information is displayed visually. So just think of how you'd use a web application as opposed to how you'd use a voice IVR. It's very easy to present various different menus to the customer, and they can just flick through those menus very intuitively, and that allows the process of collection of context very simple. And when you present that in a meaningful way to the agents, it absolutely cuts back the handle time. We see this wherever it's implemented with our customers. So if a customer contact center agent rather has the full history, or ID&V, as Graham mentioned, is a very important one, Visual IVR is always able to shorten the handle time quite significantly. That depends, of course, on the questions you ask and the way you present the information. When it's done well, it's very powerful in reducing the length of the call.
Fantastic. And
ultimately, Fiona, if I can just add, sorry, the ultimate aim is to actually reduce it to the point where there isn't a call. Because a call not received is a call that saves everybody money. And the customer doesn't really want to talk to the agent really doesn't want to talk to the customer. That's why they've chosen digital channels. So in those cases, we can push people back and help them self-serve and complete that successfully. That's the best outcome. Whereas if they do need to complete, yes, we are reducing that that average handling time, but more importantly, we're moving from a level 1 initial triage call to potentially a level 2 or level 3, because you've now got it all in context, and in some circumstances you can actually help your customers navigate through that tier 1 triage process themselves. So even if you do in some cases see a slight increase in your AHT, it's more likely to be because you've then escalated it to a level 2 or level 3, but you've negated that by taking completely eliminating or almost completely eliminating your level 1, which is the low value calls. And that's really the issue, is getting away from this idea of what's my call volume and reducing AHT in general. It's getting rid of the low value, high volume calls and having the ones that are more valuable to you and actually having someone solve them together.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating a win-win, because your highly skilled people don't want to be dealing necessarily with highly transactional exchanges. They really want to be leveraging their expertise in dealing with the more complex issues, and similarly for a simple transaction, your customers would far and away prefer to take care of themselves. So Philip said Thank you on that question, but he's got another one. He's on a roll. So Philip would like to know, has this also increased first call resolution?
Absolutely, that's a great question. It has, absolutely, because through that, with that context and being able to do that initial triage, it's allowed the agent to be, I guess, more prepped and primed with what they require. So it has definitely given it, instead of them doing a whole lot of research or looking at their bills or looking at outages and then having to come back again, it's been able to do that. Again, it's also that continuation, because whilst you might be taking the call, that journey from the customer's perspective is ongoing with the engagement room. So initial feedback from our customers has been, yes, that FCR rate has gone up significantly.
Great. Well, there's no more questions coming in at the moment. Another question that will clearly be meaningful to the audience, I think, is that, I've seen the webinar today. From go to woe, on average, how long will it take us to implement Jakarta's Visual IVR?
Visual IVR is actually very, very easy to set up. I mentioned a couple of times the fact that the vast majority of work is done in a visual drag-and-drop design environment, which is actually aimed at business users and doesn't really require a lot of, or doesn't require any coding, to be honest. So Visual IVR projects typically can be up and running in weeks, not months. To typically definitely under 3 or 4 months for very, very large projects. So in that respect, it's a very, very rapid time to market, and you can be up and running very, very quickly.
Brilliant. And that's, you know, in this highly dynamic environment, that's a really great thing to be able to do. And I think having the business able to not have to learn complex coding creates a much better experience for all concerned. Still no more questions. So it's 10 to the hour. Perhaps it might be time to just say thank you and to enable our attendees today to get 10 minutes back in their day. So there are 3 great reasons to fill out the exit survey if you don't have it blocked. It's about receiving the slides and recording of the webinar. Get a call to learn more, or of course it makes sense to say all of the above. On behalf of AusContact, I would like to thank Jakarta for their support over the last 2 years as a national silver sponsor. It's been absolutely brilliant, and you guys are certainly out there as being market leaders with Visual IVR. We certainly are so thankful of your thought leadership. And we've already got people saying they want all of the above, so that's really cool, even without the exit survey. So that's great. To you, Graham, and to you, Oded, you know, being in Israel, we so much appreciate your time today, and thank you for your ongoing support. To everyone that's attended today, please have a safe and happy Christmas, and we will see you all in the new year. Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Oded, for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great Christmas and summer break, and we hope that your power bills aren't too high.
Mine will be. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very much.